Then we get like the troop stops because they run across a greystone, and Amethy asks him about it, and this is the first time we come across greystones or waystones, whatever you want to call them. It's the first time we come across them in the books, and Kvot's like, every once in a while we run across one by the road. I gestured again to the greystone peering over the tops of smaller trees by the roadsides. Like most greystones, it was crudely hewn rectangle about a dozen feet tall. The wagons gathering around it seem insubstantial compared to the stone's solid presence. I've heard them called standing stones, but I've seen a lot of them that weren't standing, just laying on their sides. We always stop for the day when we find one, unless we're in a terrible hurry. I stopped, realizing I was babbling. I've known them by a different name, waystones. And waystones and greystones are obviously monumental in the stories. This is how he gets into the Fae when he meets Feyraniel, and there's so many moments in his life where he comes across greystones.
Yeah, huge moments with Denna. I mean, some of the most pivotal moments of his entire life. He's at a greystone at the beginning, or he's at a greystone during the moment, or at the end. They're markers for his life experience, and they're definitely they're channels to another world. I mean, we get that multiple. I mean, throughout.
He seems drawn to them,
yeah,
because
well.
like they're obviously pivotal as far as being able to transition to the Fae or to another plane of existence, but he seems to be drawn to them because there's so many moments in his life where he's around greystones, and whenever the Chandrian are around, they seem to be near greystones, so it seems to be a significant marker in the world.
I also like that his bloodline, his family respects and has a respect for the mystique around greystones, and they stop at them and they don't fully understand why. They give reasons for it, but they clearly don't fully, it seems like at least they don't fully understand why. It almost seems like it's just something that's born in. At least I get that impression.
No, yeah. It dates them, where it seems like this is a tradition that's been passed on, and they don't remember why the tradition started. I think it dates the Rue back to maybe the Ruach or the Fae, or it dates them where it seems like they used to know that these things were portals to the Fae, and now they don't grasp it anymore, but the tradition seems to date them. It seems like probably goes pretty far back.
Yeah, it's really...
Arladin asks him, Arladin says two describing words, tradition, and what's the other one?
I think good luck.
Yeah,
they start to talk about
like tradition, my boy, and then something else.
Well, but then they start to talk about them. Well, tradition and superstition. They're one and the same.
Yeah, that was it.
We stop for good luck and because everyone enjoys an unexpected holiday.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think they're obviously pivotal to the story. And I think a huge clue, which I actually, one of the benefits of redoing this episode is, like, as I was listening to it today, like, I came across something that was like it clicked in my mind, and I think it's probably obvious to a lot of people who've read the books. I'm almost certain many people have picked this out. It's just for whatever reason it never clicked in my mind, and it wasn't something I researched.
All right, here we go.
But this time listening to it, it fucking clicked in my mind. So you had when he recited the poem about the Greystones, he goes, like a drawstone, even in our sleep, standing stone by old road is the way to lead you ever deeper into Fae. Laystone as you lay, in hill or dell, Greystone leads to something L. I think it is almost 100. Do you guys have any guesses?
In hill or dell, Greystone leads you into the deepest depths of hell. Tim?
Baron Bellamy.
Yeah, yeah.
What is it?
What I think it is Laystone as you lay in hill or dell, Greystone leads to Feyraniel.
Oh, yeah,
Ah.
Feyraniel. Now, wait a minute.
It is almost 100% Feyraniel.
Feyraniel is the place where that one guy from the story met the...
Correct. Skiop is in Feyraniel, and that's where we hear about the Circle of Greystones. And it's also, like we talked about in the last episode, Feyraniel is the place of, a road that, it's a place that you don't travel to.
I'm going to say...
It's a place that, a road you don't travel to or something like that.
I'm going to say wrong.
That's got to...
Completely incorrect. Laystone as you lay in hill or dell, Greystone leads to mere Feyraniel. Boom.
Yeah, that would also fit. It's just it wouldn't align as well.
Well done, guys.
Feyraniel. Now here's what it would tie in is Feyraniel is a place is a road you don't travel to. So if you have to go to a Greystone to get to Feyraniel, then that is not a road that you travel down. You have to go through a portal to get to Feyraniel. Or Feyraniel. But also, I think the Circle of Greystones is where the Doors of Stones are. And so I think this is the reason Feyraniel, I think, is important, is that's where the Circle of Greystones are. So I think this is giving us our clue on how you get to Feyraniel. You have to go through a Greystone. You have to go through a portal to get to this in-between land.
Or at least you have to go through the Fae to get there.
That's not quite the Fae. That's not their land. It's this in-between land that you have to get to. That maybe it's like the in-between space between the Fae and their world.
Is this where Kvothe chased Felurian?
Felurian, yeah. Well, he took off running.
Because I think that was in their world. I think there's a portal that leads you to a specific portal that leads you to Feyraniel.
Okay, so
that is like an in-between place that's not quite the Fae, that is not quite their world.
So is it the road he's walking on as he then sees Felurian?
No. I don't think so. I don't see any connection between those because he just goes past that Greystone and he's in the Fae. And then when he leaves, he goes from the Fae back to his world. It doesn't seem like there's this big open space with a circle of Greystones. It seems different. It seems like these Greystones lead you through portals that, can lead you into the Fae, or maybe can lead you into a different dimension that is not quite the Fae, that is not quite your world. It's kind of outside of them.
Well, then where's Felurian? I mean, I'm saying it because this is when we go into
Felurian's
the Fae.
in the Fae.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. That's why it seems
reasonable. I'm saying Feyraniel. I'm saying Feyraniel might not be in the Fae. It might be outside of both of them.
It's not a. It's not like it's.
I mean, it could
new moon or something.
It could be in the Fae, but I don't think that's correct because then you could have accessed Feyraniel from going and seeing Felurian, and then he could have just wandered around the Fae and found Feyraniel. I think there's a specific access point to get to Feyraniel that you cannot get to.
Well,
from other
portals. I mean, we talked about that in the last episode. I think there's a time component, there's a location, there's obviously a lot to it, and this poem speaks to that as well, which is nice. So it's another element that brings in, that roadmap, so to speak, which is hard to piece together because obviously it's not clearly laid out for people. But yeah, I mean, I draw on that because that's my experience of someone going into the Fae.
Yeah, and I'm just saying I don't think Feyraniel is in the Fey. I think it's outside the Fey. I think it's like a in between. It's a road in between. It's not a road for traveling. I think there's something distinct about this place. And if you're gonna hide the most dangerous fucking person that's ever existed in this world, Ajax, you're not going to just want to hide him in the Fae with a bunch of fucking nut jobs like Feyraniel. You're going to want to have a specific place that they can't just easily access.
Yeah, you don't want someone like Dan just walking in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some random
you want like a specific place. And now what's interesting is what it connects it to me is like if he's saying, the waystones lead to Feyraniel. I'll go into a theory in episode 8 on who I think Skarpi might be bigger picture. I'm not going to go into now because it'll just step on that episode. I go into some detail on who exactly I think Skarpi is. But you guys know what I'm talking about. And I think Skarpi is going to be the person who gives him the information he needs to get to Feyraniel. Because of what like I'm going to talk about in episode 8. And for the audience, when we get to episode 8, just remember this conversation because it will all circle it back around on why I think Skarpi is connected to Feyraniel. But I do think he's connected to Feyraniel, and I think that they are going to meet again. I think Kavoth, when he talks to Chronicler about Skarpi, it seems like they are very familiar with each other, so I think they are going to meet again in Book 3, and I think what they're going to meet on is either Skarpi's going to tell more stories that gives Kavoth the information he needs to get into Feyraniel, or he's going to lead him to Feyraniel. It's going to be some aspect of Skarpi that Kavoth gets from him to get into Feyraniel, to learn where the waystone is to get into Feyraniel. I think it's almost baked into the cake that Skarpi is going to be the one to tell him how to get there. Let me flesh out Skarpi because I think I know. I have a suspicion on who I think Skarpi is. I think he is more than just Skarpi. I think he's another character in the story as well. So if you guys remember, I've brought up a number of times, the story of Skiop, the bum who travels through Feyraniel, and he speaks to the different groups trying to get, a piece of fire, get some food, and then he eventually speaks to the Rue, and the Rue are the only one that give him any kind of help. Yeah. You guys both remember this
loosely,
story?
But yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before I go into why I think Skiop might be Skarpi, the first thing I want to point out that is Skiop more than likely means either speak or speaker. So when Kavoth's traveling with Tempe and they're on their way to Adem, and it's during the time when they're training very, very hard, and Tempe's running him to death and working him to death, and Kavoth is like, he works so hard that he eventually almost passes out, and Tempe, catches him, in the midst of they do these long runs, then they do the Katan or whatever it's called, and then they practice the language, then they practice the Lethani. And so do you guys remember like when he was doing this and then he kind of passed out? Mm-hmm. Does that ring familiar to you guys? Okay. Yeah. So when he was like kind of laying down, passed out, he was talking to Tempe, and he tells Tempe, he's like, hey, you're speaking a turn very well. And Tempe's like, no, we're speaking my language, not yours. And Kavoth says, I'm not speaking. I started to protest, but as I did, I stopped and listened to the words I was using. Skiopa Teos is spelled, Skiop is spelled S-C-E-O-P. Skiopa is spelled S-C-E-O-P-A. And so it's, I'm not speaking, Skiopa Teos. So Skiopa probably translates to speak or speaker. So Skiop is a speaker, which is more than likely what I think Relar is speaker. if I remember right. It's either Relar is speaker or Alpha is speaker, one of the two. But anyways, his name is, I don't think it's a coincidence that Skiopa, in the language of Tempe's language, is speak or speaker, and Skiop's name. I think there's a reason why it's the same. I think that's a hidden clue that Rothfuss put in there to denote that this guy is a speaker. But go ahead.
Well, no, it's one thing I just want to mention. It sounds like he was using his sleeping mind there, which is cool because I like seeing that. So Skiop, what do we know about him? Who's he connected to? What group is he? Because I see the connection, and it's subtle and it's great. That's what Rothfuss does. But
so here's who I think Skiop is, and I'll tie him into Skarpi. Skiop says the old man was going from nowhere to nowhere. He had no hat for his head and no pack for his back. He had not a penny or a purse to put in. He barely owned his own name, and even that had been worn thin and threadbare through the years. So he had no hat for his head, no pack for his back, nothing to his name. The person that sounds very similar to is the Tinker in Hespa's story, because Jax took the hat from his head, the pack from his back, took everything he owned, left him nothing but some broke down house. And so I think Skiop is likely the Tinker that Jax got all his pack and everything from. So I think Skiop was the Tinker of that story. And then when Skiop is telling his story to the Rue, it says, when his story came to an end, the trooper stirred as if waking from a deep sleep. For a moment, they did nothing but look at each other. Then they looked at Skiop. So they were like mesmerized by him while he's telling this story, which is very similar to Kavoth's reaction when Skarpi finishes telling his story. He's like, I was just wrapped up in it. And, it took me a second because I got lost in that story when he came out of it. Now, so it's very similar with the way Skiop tells it. Go ahead.
Can I just, did you say the Skiop tells a story to the Rue? To the Rue?
Yeah, they asked him
as I remember the story, and I'd also like to know who's telling, it's Kvoth telling the story to, you said, to his friends, right? Isn't that what happened?
Correct.
Okay. So he starts to
So the story of Skiop is the story that Kvoth tells to Will and Sim. The reason he tells them that story was like, you guys could learn something from that. And he tells them it's the way to learn how to interact with the Rue if you ever meet one. That's how you would know, that their secret ways, basically, because of the, if they ask you if you want wine, ask for water and blah, blah, blah. And okay, so go ahead.
Well, then go ahead and keep telling the story, Dan. I'm following you now.
Okay. So I think it's important that when they ask Skiop to, he's like, when they're being so nice to him, he starts crying and bawling in his hands, and he's like, there's nothing I can offer you guys. And they're like, oh, if you really want to pay us, the thing we value most is stories. So just tell us your story. And then when he tells him his story, that's when they say, they just get wrapped up in this. Similar to all the little kids get wrapped up in Skarpi's story.
Can you tell us that story real quick?
They don't tell it.
Oh.
They don't tell it. Like, it just says that he told his story, and then says when his story came to an end, the trooper stirred as if waking from a deep sleep. Very similar to Kavoth's reaction to coming out of Skarpi's story.
So it seems like, to me, the Rue, and we talked about Tinkers before, right? How they go back. We feel like they go back to the beginning. The Rue seem to go back to the beginning. They seem to be connected in that they both travel. They both tell stories. They both they kind of carry the history of the world, right? They carry the truth of things. If that makes sense. You said Ajax, the person that takes the packs and the hat and all that off of Skiop? Say that again.
I think Skiop might be the Tinker from Hespe's story. So Jax, who's Ajax,
Okay.
takes the pack and the hat from the Tinker. And then when Kvothe tells his story about Skiop, he mentions that he had no hat for his head, no pack for his back. I think there's a reason that it's said like that. It's exactly what Hespe's story says about the Tinker, that he loses his pack, he loses his hat. I think Skiop very likely is the Tinker from Hespe's story. And so I think that's a very good clue why this guy knows all the stories of the world. Because I think he's been around forever. Possibly was a Tinker, or it could just be Hespe's story turned him into a Tinker and he was a Ruach that got manipulated by Ajax. But I think he goes all the way back to Ajax. I'm pretty confident that they're the same person.
And Ajax is the namer, right?
He's the shaper, yeah. He's the one that created the Fae. Yeah, he is, I think, the ultimate, hidden in the background, hidden bad guy, yeah. He's the one that stole the moon.
Doesn't that Tinker put a spell on Jax or something to that effect? Bad luck or speak to something of bad luck? It's been a long time.
I don't remember. Okay. I mean, obviously, they say Tinker pays like any bad deed, anything you do negative toward them like 3 times or whatever they say.
It definitely weaves through that you seal your fate when you wrong.
Yeah, it's at least implied.
Yes. Yeah. It seems that way, and that's. Yeah. I do remember there was definitely foreboding in that story. That's one of the stories I don't have a real clear sense of, which I've been wanting to get back to those, but I like this. I definitely feel like there's more to Skarpi than just delivering these couple stories. He's awesome too, man. Like his approach to the priest is fantastic, man.
Hey, Tim, I wanted to say one other thing about what you were saying with the connection between the Rue and the Tinkers is this early in the story, at least, I remember Kvothe's dad saying how much he respected the Tinkers. Mm-hmm. And don't the Rue always stop and are very nice to Tinkers? Is that accurate?
Yeah, they play the it seems to be there's a respectful.
Yeah, they're very.
Well, it seems to me that the Adema Rue are one of the true, like one of the groups that are true to like honoring history, right, and being respectful to what historically they have that with the Greystones, they have that with Tinkers and their approach towards them. They always have the utmost respect, and they honor tradition. It seems more than a lot.
Yeah, and they claim they know all the stories, so they know why that you're supposed to treat Tinkers good, and that they and they also know what it's like to be treated wrong.
So there's a natural
do that to other people's, but
there's a natural social connection between the two because they have those similarities. Right, so like they have that the traveling, how they travel, how they depend on strangers on the road. Yeah, they have that natural connection. That's why I definitely see and it's the stories. It's there's definitely a connection there for sure.
Yeah, the last thing I would want to say towards Skarpi possibly being Skiop, who is possibly the Tinker in Hespe's story that loses his pack and hat to Jax, who is Ajax. They both are described as having blue eyes. Both are described as having white hair. Skarpi is white hair, face, arms, and head. Skiop has a white beard. Doesn't talk about his head or his arms, but they both have white hair, they both have blue eyes, and there's a lot of other the other similarities I mentioned. So I think there's strong evidence that Skarpi is Skiop, who is the Tinker, and if that's the case, that could explain why he knows all the stories. He's possibly a Ruark, or he's a Tinker that is working for the former Tinker that's now working for the Emir, and he's there to wake Kvothe up. I think it gives us a possible person who Skarpi is and why he is there. Not why he's there, who sent him there.